You want to buy goggles?
Yes. Honey,
Uh-huh.
right.
Oh, that's good. We're gonna go underwater. That's Valerie's new bikini. We're trying to make the cameraman all wet.
Let's find a fish.
Okay, so we're with Paul here today and myself, Nils. We're going to talk about how to find a good lady in the Philippines for a serious relationship, not to get married, not to just play around, but to find a long-term mate that you can live with or see on a regular basis. How you doing, Paul?
Good morning to you, Nils. I'm doing fine. It's a good subject matter and somewhat hard to talk about because everybody's different, what they're looking for.
That's
So
true. That's true. And you have a lady now, long-term partner. It looks like in the Philippines, and
yes, we've
and
the
I wa-
longest one I've been together with since coming to the
yeah.
Philippines.
How
Yeah,
long have you been with her?
about a year now.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yes.
Yes, I've had my own experiences with long-term girlfriends in the Philippines, but I wanted to dive in a little bit in more detail. What would you say to a guy then that's not interested in getting married? He perhaps got a divorce in the U.S. or in his home country, and he just wants to not go down that route for a number of reasons, but he just wants to have a mate. What would you say to those guys?
Well, I think we touched on it last time somewhat. Is that when you come here, go slow. The dating options, the dating world here is completely different than in the West. The girls are completely different, their attitudes are different, but there are many girls here that are, how shall I say this in a nice way, not very good. I mean, I wouldn't call them scammers, but they have issues, and if you're with them, those issues will come out more and more. So I think taking it slow is the best way to go. Don't, like, one thing I've seen people make a big mistake is they know a girl for 1 or 2 months and then they become the living partner. I made that mistake, but I was lucky because she turned out really good. But if she had turned out to be, and I've seen it here, believe me, somewhat psychopathic, they are very hard. And that's a video I'm actually making, how to break up with girls, because once a girl lives with you, it's very hard to break up with her because you are kind of financially, emotionally, and she is so dependent on you that it's very hard to break up with her. And I haven't seen it. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I've talked to people that have had girls that have refused to move out. Now, luckily, they were in a condo, so they could call the security guard. And even when the security guard came, she basically wrapped herself around the bedpole and refused to go. They had to literally pull her off and take her out of the condo. And this happens here all the time. And then the women can call the police and make up fraudulent charges against you. So you have to be really, really careful who you choose to be your live-in partner. So I was lucky in that the mistake I made didn't turn out to be a mistake. It turned out to be something really good. But believe me, there are horror stories out there. So whatever you do, take it slow. Date a lot the first year, and if you decide this is going to be a live-in partner, take it, maybe 1 day a week, then 2 days a week, then 3 days a week for an extended period of time to really see her psychology and understand who she is. Because living with a person and being with a person are two different things.
Yes, of course. So
Yeah.
no, that's an interesting point you brought up. What would you say besides being careful and going slow? What would you say about? I know this is probably not a good topic to talk about when we're talking about how to find a girl, but what would you say about wanting to break up and wanting to get rid of the girl that's been living with you for a month or so without, a big scene and calling the police and everything else. What will be the smart way to kind of plan ahead and sort of prepare for an eventual breakup and not make it a big deal?
Well, it really depended on many things. It depends on the girl. I mean, how well you know the girl. If you think it's not going to be a problem, there's one way of approaching it. If you think there might be a problem, there's a different way of approaching it. But also it depends where you live. Do you live in a condo with security? Do you live in a subdivision with security? Or do you live in a house, that has no security, and she has maybe a copy of your key and all that? So the worst case scenario is you live in a place with no security and the girl is somewhat unstable. At that point, I would I know this is bad, but this is what I would do. I would kind of trick her in that, say, let's go out to a restaurant and eat, and have your friends or a friend come back to your place, change the locks, pack her stuff, and then just leave the restaurant. Excuse yourself that you have to leave the restaurant, and text her and say, you know what, this is over. Your stuff is outside. Don't enter the house anymore. The keys have been changed. I mean, it's kind of raw to do it that way, but it's better to do it that way if you believe you're going to have some problems. And if you really believe you're going to have major problems, I mean, maybe even hire a security guard for 2 or 3 days. They're only like 300, 400, 500 pesos a day. So it really depends on your situation, and it depends on how bad how much trouble you've gotten yourself in with this particular girl. I mean, she might be a really nice girl, and you just don't jive once you live together, and you decided it's over. And that's a different way of approaching it. And you say, you know what, it's just, this thing is not working out. And and if you really like the girl and you want her to be taken care of, even think about maybe renting her a boarding house for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, so she can get back on her feet and she can find her way. So it really depends on you. It depends on the girl. There are many different variables that you have to take into account.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I have Mia, and I love Mia, and I'm not planning on breaking up or anything. But if things were not to work out, I'd want to make sure, because I care about her, right? I would want to make sure that she's okay, and she can transitions into something good. I want to make sure she doesn't end up in something bad, because I care about her.
Right.
But if you're with a girl and you realize she doesn't care about you, she's somewhat unstable, and you don't want anything to do with her, you approach it a different way, obviously.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And the way I would do it is most Filipinos, they go to their hometown in the province
Yes.
once or twice a month, depending how far away they are. And I would use that as an out or an opportunity to break up if I really wanted to go that route, because usually they take some stuff with them. They will be gone for a few days or a week, and you've got plenty of time to kind of prepare and let her know that you want to break up. And I think that's much easier than just confronting her in a restaurant or at home saying, hey, I don't want to see you anymore. I think it's best
That's
to
That's actually very true. That's a good idea. I actually had a friend who did that. And there's another reason why this is good, because then she has the stöttapparatet.
Support.
The support from sorry, you went a bit Norwegian here. The support from her family and friends when she's over there, if that happens. So that's actually a much better idea. If you can do it that way.
And
I think some girls, if they're suspicious of something, they're not gonna leave. They're gonna I'm not leaving. I get what you're trying to do.
No, that's true. And a second route, and I found this works actually really well, is when you go back to your home country once a year or whenever it is. Depends how long you're planning on staying in the Philippines, but usually I find that is an excellent opportunity to sort of separate from your girl. At least for me, I only stay in the Philippines a few months at a time, so when I leave, I usually have a lease, and I end the lease. So the rental is usually a short-term rental, and the girl, she knows that she has to leave because the lease is finished. I'm going to my home country. So there automatically, even if there's no breakup, we just say goodbye, and I go to the airport and she goes to wherever she normally lives, and then I just make a phone call or a conversation later on the internet that I'm busy, I'm working hard, I don't know when I'm coming back to the Philippines. So it's a very sort of soft breakup, and we kind of just drift apart.
Yeah.
I find that works really well.
Yeah, well, you have more experience in this than me, I guess.
but I've heard about these breakups where the girl goes berserk and starts throwing stuff around, doesn't want to leave, and like you mentioned, holding herself to the
Bedpost.
bedpost
Yeah.
and whatever.
I've actually seen some on YouTube as well, so
That's I'm
it's a
sorry.
bit shocking when you see it.
I'm sorry
You
to
know,
hear
it's
that.
funny in the West, you try to keep a girl, especially she's 25, 30, and you're 20, 30 years older than her. You're like, wow, I'm so lucky. Here you're trying to get rid of them. It's a completely unbalanced situation, right?
Yes, but your words of wisdom is to avoid all this and go slow. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
and
and
by
I've
going,
made that mistake. Yeah, I've made that mistake. I've made plenty of mistakes coming here, but for me, it turned out good.
yeah,
I was lucky because it turned out good, but it
well,
could have easily gone the other way.
Now you have some experience now. You were married to a
Yeah.
Filipino. You know a little bit about the culture. You know what is a good person or not. So,
Yeah.
but bottom line is to go slow. And by going slow, do you mean like don't give her a key to your apartment? Only see a couple of times a week. What do you mean by going slow?
I mean, build it up slowly. Like, for example, you see her 1 day a week, and then she stays over, and then 2 days a
Okay.
week,
But
and then 3 days a week. At some point, you've been together for a year or 6 months. At some point, you're going to decide, and depends on her lifestyle and your lifestyle. I mean, if she's working, going in and out, and you're doing other things, and she doesn't have access to go in, obviously, you're going to have to give her a key. Giving her a key is not a problem because a lock can always be changed for almost nothing, So
Right.
that's, to me, that's not the problem. To me, is the psychology of the girl and her alternatives if it ends, because you have to look at it this way. Her life is so intertwined with yours, both emotionally and financially, that when you end it, I can imagine it feels like her life is ending in a way, because she has her life has gone from down here to up here. From, think of it in the States like a trailer home to a billionaire. Now you're dating a billionaire, and you go in a fancy yacht, and you're in a nice apartment, you're traveling, and then it's over, and you're going to go back to a trailer park. It kind of, it's like losing a job in a way, plus emotions and everything tied in. So I think for them it must be really, it's very tough.
Yes.
So
And
you have to approach it, you have to think of it psychologically from their point of view,
yeah.
and how to end it. And the way you were talking about ending it softly is probably a much better way than I suggested. That's kind of abrupt and strong, but it also depends on your personality as a human being. Some people are more confrontational. I can be more confrontational, and I'm not scared to tell a person how I feel. I take into account that other person, but I'm typically a reflection of the person I see. If that person
Right.
is an asshole, I can be an asshole back.
Right,
I have no
right.
problem with that. If the person is nice and kind to me, I'm going to be nice and kind to them. So
Yeah.
it
And
depends on so many different variables.
it does, and it also depends on the girl itself. Some guys, they come to the Philippines and they don't realize they've been dating online, talking to somebody they like, and they don't realize when they come to Manila, Cebu, or Dumaguete, or whatever, that this girl, she lives not in the city they're planning on traveling to. So the girl has to take a bus, or she has to fly to meet the foreigner where the foreigner is living. And then you got the other situation where you actually just accidentally, more or less, run into a lady that's working in a restaurant or working in a mall where you are staying or close to where you're staying. That's a different situation that you normally end up in than if the girl is flying in from the province or busing in from the province. And then the third thing is probably also, is the girl working in a office, 9 to 5, or is she working in a restaurant, in a bar late at night, and she's sleeping all day and sort of hanging out with you at home when you're awake. There are different variations on all this stuff, but it depends
Yeah.
on the girl, her where she's coming from, what's her work, etc. And it all relates to when the time comes when you're going to separate, to kind of do it softly and kindly and not some big confrontation.
Yeah. But what we originally wanted to talk about is how to meet girls.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I agree. It's a weird topic to talk about when we want to
Yeah.
talk about how to find girls. So let's switch back to that. And in your opinion, what is the best way to meet a girl? Well, back up even further. If a guy is recently divorced, or he's single in the U.S. or single in his home country, and he wants to explore the options of finding a lady in a foreign country, what are the options at that point? Does he just jump online and start hitting the dating sites, or does he book a ticket to Manila or another city in the Philippines? So what are the options? What is the best way to go about this?
You're talking that individual is actually moving to the Philippines, right?
Well, even before that, he's just sitting at home in his home country, and he's thinking, now I wanna do something with my life. I wanna find a mate. What country do I go to? How do I go about this? How do I meet a lady in a foreign land? He wants to explore other options than just dating single ladies in his home country.
So, I mean, if you're planning to move here, that would be one thing. If you're just not planning to meet someone online, that's a different thing. And I
No,
don't know.
no, even before any of that, he's just at the point where he's decided he's tired of American girls, tired of English girls, whatever, and he wants to explore somebody from a foreign land. What does he do? What's the first step?
Well, you can go online, but there's also women from the Philippines and other areas in Southeast Asia that live in the U.S. There is a group called Internations, and I was a member of this group, and it's all over the U.S. It's become very popular in the U.S., where people of international background meet up, and you can meet some really wonderful girls there as well. Not as wonderful as here in the Philippines, but you can meet some wonderful girls from all over the world, and some of them have just moved to the U.S., some of them have been there long term, and I found that a very good place to meet girls that are different than your typical American girl.
Oh, okay.
And so that's Internations. You just
Yeah,
go internation,
is that a website?
internations.com. Yeah, that's a website, internations.com.
Okay.
So that's a very good place to meet girls. They're mostly in the big cities, so if you live out in the country somewhere, it's gonna.
And is this
be a
a
bit hard.
membership you have to pay, or is it free?
Yeah, it's a membership, but it's not a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. So you
I
would
think it's-
recommend that over and above a regular dating site in a foreign country?
Well, if you meet a girl online and you're chatting with her and all, you're not really dating her. You're just chatting.
Right.
As long as you're not seeing her physically, not being around each other. I mean, I have done it. I have talked to women in the Philippines and come to visit them here, and 4 out of 5 times the chemistry just wasn't there. Even though we spoke on Skype and you could see her laugh, I could laugh, the body language and everything. It's different when you meet a person. When you
Of course.
meet that person in person, it's just
Right.
it's just
Right.
something about seeing a person.
So the Internations option that you mentioned, that's actually for meeting somebody locally in the city in your home country. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I see.
Another thing you could do, there are Filipinas that live in the US, and I've met a few of them
Yeah.
through dating websites, actually, that are meant for American men looking for, or Western men looking for girls in Southeast Asia, specifically the Philippines. I don't remember the name of the website now, but it'll come to me while we're talking.
Yeah. But these websites or the website you mentioned now, that's for meeting somebody in a foreign country.
No, actually, it is for meeting someone in a foreign country. But some of these Asian girls, they have come to the U.S. and maybe been with a man for X amount of years, and things didn't work out, and now they're single. And typically, they're still looking for a guy who's older. They like older guys, maybe not by 30, 40 years as here, but 10, 15, 20 years. I mean,
Right.
I met I think 3 or 4 Filipinas that way in the U.S. in Dallas. Well, they weren't in Dallas; they were around the U.S. But and it
Through
was
the
a good way
website.
to. Yeah, I met one girl. I met a few girls, but this one girl was really, really wonderful.
Okay.
Now she lived kind of far away, and things didn't work out because of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really great way to meet, and they have a very nice attitude. They're soft. They're more feminine than your typical
Oh, yeah,
Western
yeah.
girls.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they have that in them already, built in them. So yeah,
So-
this is a really good way, and I'm giving away my secrets. If I ever move back to the US, that's
Yeah, yeah. Now,
So, yeah, that's-
no,
that's-
that's
they're-
good
they're-
advice. That's good advice.
Yeah.
But these ladies that you're talking about that are online and perhaps recently arrived in the U.S. or a Western country, are they still humble and sweet, or do they quickly change into more sort of American or sort of aggressive kind of attitude?
both.
Both.
I've
Okay.
met both types.
Oh, okay.
So some I've just met a guy through the dating website and came over to the US, and it turned out the guy was, well, from what they tell me, and I got to take that with a pinch of salt, right? But it turned out the guy was basically an asshole
Yeah.
when they started living together and everything. Because you go to the Philippines, you see a girl for 1, 2, 3 weeks. You go back, you file a fiancé visa. How well do you know a person in 3 weeks?
No.
You don't know her very well, she doesn't know you very well, and then suddenly you live together and things don't work out. And like a couple of these girls I met were, I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty good judge of character now. I wasn't in my younger years, but I like to think that I am now. And a couple of these girls, they were really, really good girls. I mean, it's just they met the wrong type of person, and so very trusting girls, and just, yeah, so there are girls you can meet that way. Like I said,
Yeah.
I met 3 or 4 of them, so
Yeah.
there are possibilities that way, and they're much, in my opinion, they're much better looking than the westernized women, because typically the westernized women weighs way too much, and
Right.
to put it mildly, I call the U.S. the land of hippos and whales.
Yeah.
But they look much nicer both in the face and their bodies and their attitude, and just much, from
No,
a scale
no.
from 1 to 10,
We-
they're at 8 and 9s, and So-
We both agree on that point. But if a guy wants to go to another country, and there's a TV show called The 90-Day Fiancé or something like that in the US.
fiance visa, 90-day
Yeah,
fiance
and
visa.
it's like these extreme cases. They try to make it very entertaining and very horrific. It's a TV show. It's not the normal relationship type thing. But if a guy wants to do something like that, go to another country and find a mate and is planning to bring her back to the U.S., is it a definite no-go? It's very low probability of success, or I know you've been through it and you don't want to do it again, but would you say to a guy who's thinking about it, forget it, don't do it, or what would you say?
I would say there's an echo here now, just so you're aware. I don't know why, but do you hear that echo?
No, it's fine on my end.
Okay, there's an echo on my side.
Yeah.
But I would say the following: more than probably, it will not work out.
Yeah,
Again, there's a lot of variables, age difference, and all that. But
right.
you're taking someone from a poor country, probably who has never had that standard of living you have had, and then you're taking them there. Of course, in the beginning, they're going to be overwhelmed with joy to be with you in that environment, but things will slowly change, and especially if there's a big age difference, because she will make either Filipino friends or westernized women, and they will like push her to a different direction.
Yeah.
So I've seen, let me put it this way, out of all the people I know, there's only one case where I've seen, and I probably know close to 10 Philam couples, and there's only Okay, two cases that I know that have
Six.
seemed to be happy.
Oh,
And I
okay.
use the word seem because I know nothing better.
Yeah.
I've seen people that are still married, and I know that the woman is unfaithful.
Oh, wow.
I've seen people seem miserable in the marriage, but they keep on. So,
Yeah.
I just, it's like 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5, 1 out of 3. So if you want to take that chance, that's up to you. But whatever you do,
And
secure yourself financially
Yeah.
with prenups and postnups, like we talked about before.
yeah.
Talk to a lawyer, especially if you're well off and you have a good amount of assets or you're earning good money, and
Yeah.
and you know she won't be. So
and
you gotta
No, I totally see what you're saying. I agree. But are there any other options besides going to a foreign country and getting married and bringing her back to U.S. or the home country? How about long distance relationships? Do they work? Would you say that's a no-go also to find a lady, for example, in the Philippines and go and see her once a year? Is that an option, or is it very difficult also?
It's an option, but I think it's an imaginary thing.
Really?
You meet a girl, yeah, I think you meet a girl online, and oh, I love you, you love me, and you see her twice a year.
Yeah.
And if you think she's not having a guy on the side enjoying her life,
Yeah.
I got a bridge. I got
Especially,
a bridge to sell you. You know?
especially if you're sending her money to have a
A better life, yeah.
better life.
Yeah. Now, and you don't. This is another mistake. People start sending money to these girls.
Yeah.
Look, if the girl likes you, she wants to be with you, whether you send her money or not.
Yeah.
You sending her money is just, to me, is just a weakness on your side to try to
buy her love.
to buy her, to buy her love, to secure her, whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have enough self-confidence, to say to yourself, this girl either likes me or she doesn't, and if she doesn't like me enough without money, then to hell with her. There's 1,000 other girls waiting.
Yeah. But but
it starts. Also, be aware for girls who are doing this online. It starts slowly. It starts with I don't have enough money for load. I don't have this, and then suddenly it's a pair of shoes, and then suddenly her mother is sick in the hospital.
Right.
And then her brother is sick in the hospital, and it just builds up slowly. So they start small, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
In the end, you're sending a lot of money, and you're wondering what happened. You know. So just don't do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good girls here. I mean, that are not going to ask for money, and also a lot of girls ask for money by not asking for money. They'll hint at stuff.
Yeah.
Like they'll always give you a little hint, and that's their way of asking for money. And just don't go.
What's an example of a hint? What did they say?
Oh, they say, oh my God, my brother had an accident and he's at the police station, and they're threatening to put him in prison unless he pays this, blah blah blah. Oh no, I'm not asking you to send any money. Don't send me any money. Something like that, you know. But they're bringing it up because they want you to know, and it might actually be true.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it, you didn't cause the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's not your problem to solve. You didn't cause it.
Yeah. No, I've seen that myself, and the girl will say, oh, she needs to go to the dentist. She's got a very bad tooth that's her hurting, and she's in pain, and she can't go because her mother lost her job, and she lost her job, or she doesn't have any money, and she's not saying, can you help me? But it's like that's kind of almost the next question, you know.
It's implied. It's implied.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I find that doing the online dating thing is really it's a double-edged sword, because you're planning your vacation 6 months from now to the Philippines or a foreign country, and you start looking around online, and there's so many beautiful single ladies online, and you get hooked into one for 6 months, and then you realize once you get to the Philippines, she's not the one, like you were hinting at before. So I recommend, don't if you're planning a vacation 6 months from now, don't even go online until you get a month before your trip. So you don't spend 5 months out of the year or before your travel plans talking and wasting your time to somebody that you're not going to end up with anyway.
Also, I would say this: plan to meet more than one girl,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
don't meet them like I again learning from my mistakes at the airport or at the hotel or whatever.
Yeah,
Just tell them you'll meet them for a coffee, and if you jive after a couple of hours, if not, you
yeah,
go your own way. You say, "Oh, it was nice meeting you, but
yeah,
I don't think it's meant to be," and you call the second, third, or fourth girl. You
yeah,
just
exactly.
line up a few girls in that city you're going to be, and you're not being an asshole. I mean, everybody does that. I mean, women do that too.
Yeah, yeah, of
So
course, of
you're
course.
just trying to find someone that you're going to jive with, and
Yeah,
of course, you don't have to tell them that. Hey, I'm going to meet 5 different girls. Blah blah blah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You just tell her you're going to meet her for a coffee, and if things
Yeah,
work well, you
exactly.
can go on. Or if not,
Exactly. And but you're saying the long distance relationship is very difficult. For example, going once or twice a year to the Philippines, and meeting somebody. You're saying that's difficult. Are there any other options besides getting married and bringing the person to the U.S. or dating somebody long distance once or twice a year? Is there any other options?
you know, in the society we live in the U.S., they don't want you to have another option. They want you to get married. They want you to be a slave to the state, right? So that's the only option they're going to give you. They're not going to give you an option to bring her over for 6 months and see how things work out. I mean, fiancé visas, 90 days, for God's sake. They're saying basically you get 90 days to know this girl to decide yay or nay. I mean, it should be a year at least, they
Yeah.
should give you. But I mean, that's the state of the West now. It's so
Yes.
it's
How-
so female. There's the feminist imperative in the West. So it's
Yes.
just there's really not a lot of choice. The
Yeah.
choice you have is to say no to it all,
Yeah.
work your ass off, invest, and just at a certain point say, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I did at
Yeah.
51
How-
years old.
How?
If I had
Yeah.
realized what I realized now, if I'd had YouTube in my late 20s and 30s, I could have basically retired in my 40s or 45s.
Right. Right.
So, and also when you retire, remember this: you're not really retiring. You always find something to do. You might not be making the kind of money you made back in the States or back in Europe, but
Right.
you will find something to do.
So besides being stuck in the rat race in the Western world, could a guy basically say he's got enough? He might not be ready for retirement yet, but he's got enough. He wants to just move to the Philippines. He wants to get a job in the Philippines, start a business in the Philippines. He wants to take the small money he has with him, and maybe he has 6 months to live off. Could he go to the Philippines and just start a life there and find a mate and kind of make some small amount of money in the Philippines and just start a new life there? Would that work?
Absolutely not. I always say this: whatever you invest in the Philippines, you have to be willing to lose.
Okay.
It's just whether you buy a house, whether you invest in a business, get ready to lose it, okay? And I always, like I say, don't invest more than 10 to 20% of your life savings here in the Philippines, whether it's a house or a business or whatever you're doing. It's really, the laws here are not made to protect the foreigners and the investors. They're made to
Right.
protect the Filipinos.
Yeah.
And you could buy a house, pay for a house, everything, and still lose that house to a girl, even though she hasn't paid 1 peso on that house. That's how the laws are here. So I just would not, unless you're willing to lose it. Now there are ways, for example, in buying a house to secure yourself, so the probability of that happening is much smaller, but there's still that probability. So you have to look at your investment compared to your return on your investment, what type of gains you're going to get over the next years. And
Right.
if it's anything less than, let's say, a 9 or 10% return on your investment, it's just
Yeah.
not worth it here.
But what
It's just
about
not
the
worth it.
guy who's not got enough money or doesn't want to invest a lot of money in the Philippines?
Stay in the West and work.
Really?
Work.
Yeah.
Save. If you're living in a house or an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, rent out the 1 bedroom. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Even though I was making good money, I did even more to save.
Yeah.
So save. I mean, look at your spending habits. Look
Yeah.
at anything you can cut down on. Cut down on. Now, of course, eat healthy. Don't start eating unhealthy or anything like. Eat healthy, exercise, keep yourself fit. Like basically, be the best you can be, but also try to save. Try to become what they call here koriput, which is
Stingy.
stingy. Yeah, stingy. Try to become stingy on everything. You know. Don't go spend $5 on a coffee. Don't go spend, go out on night and spend $200 on a girl that you might or might not see again. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. Be stingy.
Yeah.
Don't
I agree.
keep saving, investing, and
But
don't touch that nest egg.
Yeah. No, that's very good advice. But what about like going to the Philippines for like 6 months out of the year, and then just going for the other 6 months back to the U.S. and work and sort of alternate, sort of half time, 50% Philippines, 50% in the U.S. Would that work?
I think that would work if you get to a certain point in your savings and a certain point in age. I know, well, I've lost contact with that person, but I used to know a person that did that. He was actually a truck driver. So he would drive in the U.S. for 6 months, and he'd live in Bohol actually for 6 months. And he had a Filipina girl, and actually I don't know if that relationship is still working because I've lost contact, but it seemed to be a great relationship because they worked together as well. So they would drive around the whole of the U.S. together. So maybe it worked because she didn't have influence from other women pulling her to a certain way.
Okay.
So
all right. But
they were together all the time, and then they came to Bohol for 6 months. They were there together here, and they seemed to have a good relationship.
Okay. But they had a marriage or relationship in the U.S. You're saying 6 months out of the year.
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm
6 months.
talking about the guy who's single in the U.S. 6 months out of the year, and then he decides to go to the Philippines for the other 6 months and just have a wonderful time, find a mate, spend not too much because he's basically not working in the Philippines. It's hard for foreigners to get a job and make income in the Philippines, and then pack up and go back to the U.S. or his home country and work there for another 6 months, and then keep doing the same thing every year. Would that work?
I think that would work wonderfully if you're up to it and you can make enough money. But also remember, you have to make enough money to put away money for when you reach a certain age, because once you reach 65, 70, 75, maybe you don't want to be doing the work that you're doing, especially if it's any type of physical labor, So always, I like to say, plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? So always put money. You have to be able to be putting money aside in case something happens, like a recession, like the pandemic now. Maybe you go a year and you can't work. You have to have money on the side so where you can live and have a okay lifestyle, and then be able to go back to work when things pick up. So, always be putting money aside.
Yeah, but I agree with your approach, but there's a danger in that approach as well, because you never know what might hit you somewhere in the middle of your life, and you're working hard and saving hard, and suddenly you realize that your dreams of moving to the Philippines at the end of your life is cut short because you came down with some serious disease or something else happened that prevented you from moving and traveling, and the old adage or the old saying that you should live your life today. You should not live your life in the future. You can't change your past. You can't change or you can't jump to the future. You can only live today. So there's some advice, from wise people saying, forget about just working. You should live your life today, and then you would come to the conclusion, well, maybe I should just go to the Philippines for 6 months and forego the 6 months of earnings that I could have had in the Western world, and just start enjoying life sort of in the middle of your your youth, and when you have health and you can travel around. What do you think about that?
I agree with you, but again, I kind of disagreed about just living for today. I think you have to plan for tomorrow. Whether tomorrow comes or not, no one knows. But if you don't
Right.
plan for tomorrow and then tomorrow comes and you haven't planned for it, you could
Right.
be in a pretty bad situation,
Yeah,
right? So
and
it's kind of a combination. You have to balance that in
Right.
a way.
And
And also being healthy, living healthy, eating healthy, exercising are all very important things so you can live a nice long life. And not just live a long life, but the life that you live will have a higher quality. So
yeah.
that's also a very important part of.
No,
but
you're
if
very
you can
organized.
do it, if you can do it 6 months, and 6 months is great, but not everybody has that opportunity. Like me as an engineer, I didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
I would have to go work in the fields and um,
You have
you
to
know, kind of
quit your
change my-
job or something. Yeah.
quit my job and go do something else, make less money, and actually work harder because the field work is actually harder. So
Yeah.
and then you'd do 6 months on, 6 months off, but it's not sure even when you come back, the job is there. So,
Yeah.
you know, and not everybody, if you can do that, that's wonderful. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's very small percentage of people that can actually do
Yeah.
that. So.
No, I was able to do it because I worked as an independent consultant in Silicon Valley, and I designed my life in such a way that I was never a full-time permanent engineer for any company. I was always an independent consultant. So I had to hustle, I have to, get the next client. Always, I was always kind of in a marketing kind of business mode, but it worked well with my travels. I was able to travel close to 6 months out of the year, and then when I came back to the US, I was able to hit several websites and say, I'm back in town again, I'm available now, do you have any consulting work you need done? So that seemed to work for me, and I want to put that out there to the subscribers listening. You don't have to fall into the 9 to 5 rat race and try to please the boss and try to get a promotion and work there for 5 or 10 or more years. You can become an independent consultant, and there are several websites out there and organizations you can join, so you can start that way of thinking rather than I want to get promoted to this and that, and you work for the same company for a long time. You don't have to fall into that.
I think it depends also, like you're an engineer, I'm an engineer. I think it depends on what type of engineer you are and where you are in your career and a lot of other variables. So
yeah,
it's still tough for a lot of people to be able to do that, I think.
Okay.
But
Okay.
for some people, yes. I mean, if I was in my 30s and I could work 6 months off, 6 months on, making the type of money I was making, let's say half of what I was making, that would be...
Yeah.
I think somehow I think I'd still work till at least my early 40s, and then maybe go to 6 month on, 6 month off, because
Okay.
you're in the prime of your life, you're working, you're making money, you're getting promoted, and you're getting the experience, which is very important for consulting.
Yeah.
And then once you have that, you can go over to consulting and working part-time.
Yeah.
It also depends on you as a person, how much you like working. Some people really don't want to work. They just do it because of the money. And as soon as they have an opportunity, they quit.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I love working. So even here in the Philippines, I started a YouTube channel. I did some consulting. I learned... I could already program, but I learned more about programming, and I created some apps for an oil company. And so, I mean, I always found something to do, and the times that I've had nothing to do, I've been, even with the traveling and going from island to island, I was a bit bored, I was like, trying to find meaning in life. So I think you really have to think it through, what type of personality you have, what you think you'll do when you get here. Because if you're the go kind of person and you come here and it's just, what shall I do now? It could be kind of depressing. I mean, even if you get a beautiful girl and you're like, oh my God, I never thought I could have this beautiful girl. That's just not enough. It really isn't. You gotta have more than that.
That's true. And just as you're speaking, it reminds me about my experience when I took a beautiful girl to Boracay in the Philippines. It's one of the most beautiful islands or beaches in the world. That's been written up in magazines all around the world. And I lived there for 3 months. I just basically tried to see how it would feel living on a paradise island for a long time. and just like you said, I got bored. I was just going crazy. I needed something to do. I was walking on the beach every morning. It's just, dream life, paradise. And I was drawing mathematical equations in the sand with my finger, and I was thinking, what can I build? What can I design? What can I, my mind was just
Yeah.
so bored. I mean, I
Yeah.
had the most beautiful girl any man could imagine, waiting at
Yeah, I
home,
think you made
cooking.
a video with a girl in
Yeah,
Boracay. Is that the girl? Because
yeah,
I
yeah.
seem to remember she was
Correct,
beautiful.
correct, correct.
She still sticks in my mind. So that was, I mean, she was really beautiful. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
so,
I saw
so,
that video
oh,
about a year
thanks,
ago or so. Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's our Western mentality, if it's just we're guys, or if we're engineers. We need something to do.
I think it's because we're engineers. I think we're
Yeah,
so used to using our minds and so used to doing things, solving problems. So we become bored quickly
yeah,
if there's nothing to solve.
yeah.
So I'm always looking for a problem to solve. You know? Maybe that's why I give advice on YouTube.
Yes,
I don't
yes.
know. So
And the funny thing is that we are. Well, I think it's a plus the way we're talking, and it's a positive. But we come to the Southeast Asian culture, and people are so laid back. They don't want to engage in problem solving. They just want to
yeah,
enjoy the life now, and they want to invite some friends over and have a laugh or whatever. It's just sometimes you wonder how can we get along. They're so different.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I know
it's
exactly
interesting.
what you mean because I'll go places and I'll see these problems. I'm like, God, this is so easy to solve. Why is it? And I call it total lack of leadership, but it's really just problem solving. And it's just like everybody is chilled, everybody's relaxed. It's no big
Yeah,
deal. You know, we'll take care of it.
yeah,
You can live. You
and
can
yeah, no, I agree.
you can live with that. There's a big pot and a big hole in the road. Yeah, you just drive around it, no problem. You know, it's like what's the big deal? You know, why are you making a big fuss out of
Yeah,
this? You know, it's like
exactly.
come on, just chill, man.
Yeah,
You know, it's like
exactly.
you're like, and it drives you nuts because you're used to, there's a problem, solve it. There's
Yeah,
a problem, solve it.
yeah,
And even if it isn't a problem, you want to make it as efficient as possible.
yeah,
You want
exactly.
efficiency in the system, right? So you're always looking for something to do and solve and make it more efficient.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah,
that's just our mentality. And I think it's good and bad because I think once you come here, you start chilling, and I think that's good for the soul, really.
yeah,
You gotta.
and
It's a balance. It's a balance, really.
yeah, it is, and I want to take it back to the dating situation and interacting with a local girl who doesn't have our mentality of problem solving and always wanting to have something to do. I find sometimes, my beautiful girlfriend, she's just fantastic to be with, but some things just drive me crazy. Like she'll watch cartoons in the morning and she'll get a lunch and chicken or whatever and sit there for an hour or two, just having a
On
good
Facebook.
time, and I'm just getting a little itchy and wondering, well, what are we gonna do today? It's
Yeah.
half the day is already gone, and we're just sitting here watching cartoons. What else can we do? So it sort of
Yeah.
feeds back into the dating and the relationship, and sometimes I find it difficult to come to some sort of understanding about all this, because I'm just like you. I need to have my mind engaged. I cannot just sit and watch TV and watch soap opera all day. It doesn't work. But sometimes my beautiful Filipino girlfriend, she will be happy to do that for weeks on end.
Yeah, they'll be happy to sit on the phone for 3-4 hours going
Right.
through Facebook,
Yeah.
and just or watching TV or anything. Just sitting on the sofa, contemplating, not even contemplating, imagining a different world.
Yeah.
And
Your
so
sound
that's
is going low. Your sound is going low.
oh, I was hearing an echo. That's why I
Oh.
did that. But
Oh, I see.
um, yeah, so that's the part we were talking about earlier about meeting a
Take
girl.
take one of your headphones off your ear. Put it behind your ear. See if that
Okay, no, it's okay now.
okay.
It's not. But that's the thing we were talking about earlier is going slow because you will be inundated with beautiful women that you never thought you'd have a chance in hell
Right.
of meeting, you know. Not even when you're in your 20s, you thought you could meet such a beautiful girl.
Right.
You know, so in your 40s or 50s or 60s, you think, no way in hell. And then you meet this girl and you're completely mesmerized by
Yeah.
it. And that's the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
you're completely mesmerized.
Yep.
That's why these guys do really stupid things like buy a house and lot for a girl they've known for 3
Yeah.
months, you know.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
like they're completely mesmerized.
Yeah.
And so the thing is to take it real slow, because you'll meet a lot of these girls, beautiful girls, and you'll be mesmerized. But after a while, you just start getting used to it. And then you really start looking for something that's a bit different. Like with me and Mia, she's really smart, and we can talk about subject matters. And even if she doesn't know about it, she'll go Google it and try to understand more about it. And we can talk more about it. So, and we have the same sense of humor. So it's very important, because you'll meet a lot of these girls that, how should I put it, that really don't have much to say, you know.
Yeah.
You'll be together and you won't have anything to talk about.
Correct.
You'll try to talk about something and they'll be like, what?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And then back to their Facebook, you
Yeah.
know. So it's
Yeah.
if you're of that type of personality that you like to talk, you like to engage and all that,
Right.
you have to use your time and probably, you know, meet girls that have gone to school here, maybe gone to college, who have different educations and all that. Something I thought about before I met Mia, and I'm still contemplating doing, not to meet other girls because I already have Mia, but go to like when the universities go up. I always wanted to take an MBA as an example. A semester here for an MBA is $400. And I think you could meet some wonderful Filipinos and engage your mind learning. And
Yeah.
even though you're not going to use the MBA, it's still nice to learn something new.
Yeah.
So you always have that possibility, especially if you're living in a university town.
Yeah.
So.
But it's a double-edged sword. We as older foreigners come to the Philippines to meet a young, sexy, attractive Filipina. But once they start getting educated, they go to university and college, their expectation level rises. It's not overnight, but it slowly rises. And I find that when you find a lady like that, educated, pretty, attractive, she has a good job or whatever, yes, she can hold a conversation. She will be very interesting to talk to for hours. But they are not as humble. They are not as forgiving for, say, some older guys' idiosyncrasies. And it's kind of a double-edged sword in the sense that it may not be as easy to hold on to that girl. She might start demanding more, either money or more attention, or a younger, more sexy, more affluent kind of guy. You know, it's always a trade-off. You know, how do you find the right balance? That's my experience.
That's exactly it. It's finding the balance, finding the right type of girl. But there are girls out there that might not have how shall I say it?
Expectation.
An education, formal education, that's the word, a formal education, but they have a life experience. They're actually interested in learning things. It's just not on Facebook. They think differently maybe than other girls. There are girls that are different out there. It's just, I think, you know, you have the polarity of girls that are a certain way, then you have a subset of other girls that are maybe different, and that's. But it also depends on your personality. You might be the type of guy who likes to sit on the sofa and goes on Facebook for 5 hours. So that's kind of the girl you want, you know. Or you might be completely fine with a girl not talking to you all day because you don't want to really talk to her. You want to go out with your friends and have a beer, and that's enough talking for you, you know. So I'm talking from my point of view, but everybody's looking for something different, and that's what we talked about. Is like you got to take it slow. Really slow, and date many girls before you kind of get into the mindset of finding exactly what you're looking for.
So yeah, that's very good advice. So to wrap it up, is it true then that you can find the girl you want in the Philippines?
I would say absolutely.
Okay.
It's so much easier to find a girl here than it is in the West, and they're so much more dedicated.
Even if you want,
find them.
Even if you want a girl that's a little educated and can hold a conversation, can you find that in the Philippines?
I would say yes. I mean, for a guy as myself, I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm relatively young compared to most people that are retired here. So Maybe that too. But you know, I mean, if you're 75 years old, 80 years old, and trying to find a 25-year-old with a master's degree, that's probably not going to happen. You have to set your expectations to reality, right? So,
Right.
but the girls here are different. They're nicer. They're more feminine. Even the ones who are educated. And I just think there's someone for everyone over here, and it's so much easier to meet girls here. You meet them at the malls. You meet them at the beach. You can meet them at the marketplace. You can meet them just walking. You could just be walking down the boulevard. You know, they smile at you. You smile back. You go up and talk to them. It's not that fear of rejection here the way it is in the West. Because even if you're rejected here, they reject you in a nice
Right.
way. You know,
Right.
they don't laugh at you or roll their eyes. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a much better dating environment. There are much more opportunities here, and the variety of girls here are much larger than the U.S.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything. I don't want to sound like this is paradise, because there are minuses living here. There are
Yeah.
obviously minuses
Yeah.
compared to the West.
Right.
But as far as dating is concerned, there are no minuses
Yeah.
as for me that I've found.
Yeah.
But living here, there are certain minuses.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would absolutely recommend, if you can retire or you can't come here, you have savings, you have maybe an online business, you can do consulting like you're talking about, working 6 months on, 6 months off, and you can do it. I would say come here. I mean, go not only here, I mean, for dating, come here, but also go to other Southeastern countries for the experience. Travel the world.
Right.
Actually, I saw this, just to wrap it up, I was watching a video on YouTube with this girl, a black girl from America that moves to Portugal, and one of the reasons she moved is she's relatively young, just like 39 or 40 years old, and she still works online, but she moved to Portugal and decided to leave the US after one of her good friends died at an early age, like in her 30s, late 30s. And she thought about it and said, you know what, life is too short. I'm not going to live the rat race here in the US and just be 50 years old and suddenly lean over and die of a heart attack or get cancer or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, it's important to think life through and think what's valuable for you,
Yeah.
Get away from the materialistic. If you come to
Yeah,
the Philippines, that's another thing. If you come to the Philippines, don't think materialistic, think experience.
No, those are very good words of wisdom. And working online now these days is becoming very much more easy than before. Internet speeds, even though it's slower in the Philippines, are getting better, and you can teach English online. You don't have to be a truck driver in the U.S. for 6 months out of the year and then go to the Philippines and use all your savings. You could take your work with you to the Philippines.
And just to wrap about internet, there's something called Starlink with Elon Musk, and that's going to supposedly be available in the Philippines by the end of 2021. I don't know if it's been pushed back because of the pandemic, but with that you'll get reliable, fast internet. You don't ever have to worry about internet here in the Philippines again, or anywhere in the world after a while, because you could be in the middle of the jungle and have fast internet.
Wow.
So that's coming. Just look it up, Google Starlink, and you'll see what that is.
Yes.
Um,
No, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that.
But also on the working online, teaching English, that's kind of played itself out. It's hard to earn enough money. Yeah, because especially since the pandemic and so many people were at home, so many people jumped on that bandwagon, so it's pushed the wages down, pushed the hours down. So maybe when the economy picks up again and people are back in work, that will be a possibility. But
And I was also thinking, once the Philippines gets more internet enabled, it could be an opportunity for your Filipina girlfriend, so she can get an online job teaching English or whatever, and it can supplement your life as well. If your Filipina girlfriend is working, it's less of an expense for you if you have a live-in mate. So getting the Philippines internet enabled, that's a very positive step for everybody, I think.
It's not just, for me, it's not just about the money. It's that she's making some money. To me, it's that she's actually contributing. That I feel like we're both contributing to our relationship. I mean, she contributes in other ways, obviously. Like,
obviously.
I won't get into it here, but she contributes in other ways. but also to contribute financially means that she has more more in the game, you know, more, what do you call that again? The expression. More money in the game. She has more value in the relationship, you know, that the relationship actually means something to her. And, you know, if she's making, let's say, 25,000 online and sending all the money to her relatives and not contributing to our relationship, you know, then there's a type of unbalance here. She doesn't do that, but I'm saying if you're with somebody who does that, there's an unbalance in that relationship where you're paying everything.
Right.
It should be, I'm not saying it should be 50-50 because you probably have more financial possibilities than she does, but she has to contribute something to make that relationship. To show that she appreciates that relationship and not just what you're doing for her. She has to do something for you as well.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Paul. That was very interesting, and we got into some very weird and interesting angles there.
Yeah, we kind of got off topic.
But we've exactly hit 1 hour and 5 seconds here on my camera.
Wow.
Anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, just check my channel out. It's Paul's Asian Adventure. It's not Paul's Asian channel, but it's Paul's Asian Adventure.
Yep.
So please check that out, and I think Nils will have it on the description below where you can click on it and go check my videos out.